Hi, this lab should look familiar to you. It's the one I assigned in class at the beginning of the week, and I'm going to work through each question so you can see how things should be done. I've already copied the data that you see highlighted here. In fact, I'll do a Control-C and copy it again, and then I'm going to switch over to the spreadsheet that I have started typing in, and I'm going to insert a text box down in here and execute a paste command, Control-V. Okay, so the reason I did that is so I could have those rules immediately accessible and didn't have to switch back and forth, because I'm going to have to write a function and implement these rules, and I want to be able to see them on the same page. Just makes it a little easier for me to keep track of things. Okay, so the instructions called for typing in the certain data in this spreadsheet, and I'm going to highlight all these columns now, and I'm going to go over to the format button on the home page. So over here in the cells ribbon, I've got a format button, and in the past I have frequently used the auto fit column width option, and so that will stretch the columns out as wide as they need to be, but make them no wider than they need to be. This time I'm going to use the column width option and set them to some width that seems reasonable, like 15. I'll make them roughly twice as wide as they are right now. And I'll say OK, and then I've lost this, so bring it back so I can see it. Alright, so looks like I've made these sufficiently wide, except for maybe this one right here and this one right here. So I'm going to expand them a little bit more, and I'll use the manual method of doing that. Otherwise, everything looks pretty good. I may opt to format these so that all the text is centered in the columns. That might make it a little bit easier to read. This wasn't really a requirement that I put in the assignment in the lab, but nevertheless you can see that demonstrated. I've already typed in Monday here, and I'm just going to use the fill handle and drag down, and Excel has the smarts to copy that by advancing the day. And then I want to take a look at these rules, because I'm ready to provide the data to columns E and column F, and this is where I need to have the spreadsheet look at the data that's been stored in column B, which would be the high temperatures, in columns B and columns D. Okay, and make a decision as to whether to display good day or just leave it blank. So as I look at what needs to go down the optimistic column, okay, I want to display good if it is sunny, or if the high temperature is greater than 45 degrees. So either of those conditions would allow me to display good day down column E. And so it has to make a decision. I'm going to use an if statement, and in the first argument of the if statement, where I have to make a true-false decision, I'll make that true-false decision by evaluating two conditions concurrently, and I want either of the conditions to cause the if statement to evaluate true. Therefore, I'm going to use the least restrictive function as part of that Boolean expression. I'm going to use the OR function, and it's going to look something like this. So I'll start out equal, as all functions begin with an equal sign, if And then I need to, as we look at the IntelliSense, provide a logical test, and this is where I'm going to use the OR function. And the OR function will have two arguments, and those two arguments are going to be, one of them is going to evaluate column B data, the other is going to evaluate column D data. And I check the rule greater than equal 45, so I'll put in B2 greater than equal 45. So that's one condition that could evaluate either true or false. And then the second condition would be D2 equal, and I have to compare it to the string literal. Okay, so this needs to be framed inside of double quotes. Sunny, close that off, and that satisfies the first argument in the if function. And if it evaluates true, I want to have it display good day, so I'll be displaying the string literal good day, put an exclamation mark there for appearance. And then if it evaluates false, excuse me, rather than displaying bad day or something else, I'm just going to put in an empty string, double quote, followed immediately by double quote. Okay, and I now have satisfied all three arguments for the if functions. I'm going to terminate the if function and strike the enter key. And as we look over here, number 1, Monday's optimistic description is it's a good day. It is satisfied by both conditions. Okay, so B2 greater than or equal to 62 is satisfied, and D2 equals sunny. Both conditions are satisfied. Now, if I go back to this cell that I've just typed the function in and drag down on the fill handle, I can copy that function in a relative way. Okay, so these cell addresses are set up as relative cell references, and it will adjust the row coordinate to whatever row it's copied into. And there we have it, and let's see whether that makes sense. The second one, first condition greater than or equal 45 degrees does not evaluate true, nor does the second condition. So if you think about it in terms of truth tables, that's false, false, and an OR table yields false. And the next one is true, false in the truth table. So true ORed with false gives me a true. The next one would be false ORed with false. False, false gives me a false. And the last one is in the truth table. First condition is true. Second condition is false. True, false in the truth table, or truth table gives me a true. So everything works out just the way I want it there. Now I want to put in a similar expression over here, but the pessimistic description is more restrictive. Both conditions need to be true, not one or the other or both, but absolutely only the only way this is going to display good day is if both conditions evaluate true. So I'll go ahead and type in the if function, so equal if, and this time the Boolean condition for the Boolean argument for the if function is going to use the AND function, and it's going to evaluate again B2 and check to see if it's greater than or equal 45. The second condition that has to evaluate true is that D2 has to be equal to the string literal sunny. And when both of those conditions are true, then the if function will evaluate true and display the second argument, which would be good day. And if either of the conditions evaluate false, then the if function would take the false path and display an empty string. Okay, so both conditions evaluate true on this one. That would be true, true in an and truth table, and that yields true. So therefore it takes the true path and displays good day. And that happens to be the only case where both the temperature is greater than or equal, this column, where both the temperature is greater than or equal to 45 and the forecast is sunny. So that takes care of that question. Now, I'm going to go back to my sheet here and continue on. So I'm asked to apply conditional formatting to cells B2 through C6, okay, and to accentuate any temperatures above 40 degrees. Okay, so let's go back and do that. And the first thing I'm going to do is highlight the range of data in column B that I want to apply the conditional formatting rule to. I'm going to go to conditional formatting, choose new rule, and I'm going to look at some of the pre-defined functions. And one is format the cells based on their values, and I haven't looked at this in advance. So this one, maximum high, that doesn't seem to work. I guess I'll put a my own rule in here, so I'm going to use the formula. I was looking to see if there were any pre-existing rules that seem to make sense for this, and I don't see it. So the first cell in this range is going to be cell B2, so equal B2, and I want to check to see whether it is greater than equal 45. And if it is, I want to apply some formatting. So I'll go ahead and make the text bold and maybe make it slightly larger. I think I can do both. All right. Maybe not. Okay. And then I'll go to fill and choose some fill color that's going to stand out. I'm tired of yellow. And I'll say OK to that, say OK to that. And I've highlighted all those cells. Now, I was going to try to highlight these differently and use two rules, but let me go back. I could do the same thing in column C, and it would apply the same rule, but I'm going to try something here. I don't know whether I've ever done this before, but I'm going to highlight these cells, go back to conditional formatting, and I'm going to clear the rules for the selected cells, okay? And then I'm going to highlight both column data, go to conditional formatting, choose new rule, and write my own formula. And the first cell in here is B2, so I'll say equal B2 greater than equal 45, and apply some kind of formatting under those circumstances, and say OK and say OK. And yeah, it worked fine. So I highlighted two columns and applied the rule to not just one column but to two columns. So I had a feeling that would work. I don't know that I've ever actually tried that before, though. So what did you see there? You saw me apply conditional formatting. You saw me highlight the cells where the conditional formatting was highlighted and was applied initially, and you saw me remove the rule from those selected cells. So I can put in a rule, I can take out a rule, and then I went back and highlighted two columns and entered in the same rule, and it applied that rule to both columns. Okay, so hopefully that's sufficiently clear. All right, so we've applied, oh, that was supposed to be for temperatures above 40 degrees. All right, so I should have put in a different rule there. So let me go back. I think I can edit that rule, and so this rule shouldn't be greater than equal 45, it should be greater than 40. So let me go back to the spreadsheet, and I'm going to go to conditional formatting, and I want to try manage rules, and I want to, okay, let me try this then. Let's see if I can highlight these. Now I can always delete them and put in the rule again, but I want to attempt to edit that rule. Okay, so it is the current selection, and it shows me that the rule is this. Okay, and then I want to edit the rule, and now I should be able to come down here and change that to greater than 40 and say OK. Now I don't know whether that's going to affect anything or not, but I have changed the rule, and you know, it's applied it properly. And 40's a boundary condition right there, so if that were 41, it would change it. So something else to be mentioned here is that when a rule is put in place, then that rule remains dynamic, and if the data changes, then the rule is apt to, you know, affect the changed data as it did whenever I changed that from 40 to 41. Okay, so the conditional formatting has been done. Let's see what else we have to do here. Okay, I had to switch to another room where I could power up, and actually I lost part of the video, so I'm having to re-record just so you know what's happened just a moment ago. But we're at a point now where we want to answer question number 4, which has to do with creating this chart. Okay, so if you take a look at the chart, you'll notice that there's a legend across the bottom that gives me labels that describe what the different color bars mean. Okay, so the blue bars then are associated with high temperature, and the red bars with low temperature. And I have a scale over here on the y-axis that allows me to see the temperatures at which the bars intersect. I also have some labels on the end point of these bars that give me the exact temperature. Okay, so I can see roughly where it is by seeing where it intersects the horizontal bars, horizontal lines associated with the vertical scale, but I can also see the actual numbers. So I want to reconstruct this in this same way, and there's actually a way that I can improve this, so I'll do it a couple of different ways, and that should provide you with a pretty good review of charting. So if I go to the spreadsheet data now, and I hope I have this reconstructed. I had changed things before the power went out, and so I think I've got everything restored to the way they were in the first part of the video. So I am going to copy this data from its current sheet 1 location, and I'm going to highlight all the data, do a Control-C to copy, create a new sheet. Okay, I'm going to rename this sheet now Sheet 2, and place a cell pointer in cell A1, the top left cell, and execute a Control-V and paste in the data. And as before, I need to change these column headings. So on the home page, I'm going to go to the cells ribbon, and under the format tool, change the column width to 15, and then manually tweak the width of these last two columns just by dragging on the dividing line in the column label area. And at this point, things look pretty good. I might dress this up a little bit, add some fill color here, and add some fill color here. Okay, just make some of that data a little clearer. And now what I want to do is create this chart. So if I create the chart the way I showed in the Word document, the easy way to do that is just to highlight, starting with the column headings, which are going to be used as legends, highlight the two columns of data that I want to graph, and go to the insert page, and this time I'll go straight to the column chart button, click on it, choose a column chart, and what I have is the data set up the way it is showing over here. Okay, more or less. I'm not sure why it doesn't show these labels, these x-axis labels in the chart here, and over here it put in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going to change all that in a moment, so I'm not sure why it's slightly different here. I can change the chart title, and I'll change it to forecast, which is what it was previously, and I might want to spell that right. Okay, so change that to forecast, and now with the chart being active, what I'm going to do is, with the chart being active, I'm going to go over to the format page. So the format page will be active, will be an option that you have on the tabs up here when the chart is active. And I'm going to go to the Add Chart Element tool, and I can show where the title, I can either have no title, or I can arrange the title, in different ways. I'm going to stick with this. I can apply data labels. Okay, so this is where I was able to put the actual values right on the bars, and I'll choose endpoint as opposed to inside base. Okay, so I think it's a little bit easier and clearer if I use inside end. And so that's more or less the way I created it before, and then I chose a different style up here. So you have various styles, and in fact you can scroll through a list. There's more styles than what I previously showed. Okay, so there's a style that's similar. If I go back, that's the style I actually chose previously. And I'm not happy with this. So what I'm going to do is cut this chart and start over again. And this time I'm going to highlight the data in column A, B, and C, and you'll see the effect this will have. Okay, so it'll then use the column A data as x-axis labels, and it'll make the chart more meaningful. So I'm going to insert a bar chart again. Okay, and you'll notice that this time, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I actually have the days of the week showing up here, so it's a little bit more meaningful. And again, if I choose a different style, it has that effect. And that should be a quick review of charting. You'll want to play around with this a little bit before you take the certification exam, though. All right, so continuing on, I am to create a second worksheet and arrange the data in ascending order according to high temperatures. Ascending order according to high temperatures. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get rid of the chart. I think it's just going to be in the way right now. I'll cut that. And on this second sheet, I'll go ahead and reorder things. So I want to actually do the sort a little bit differently. I will sort on high temperatures, and I'll sort them in ascending order with the lowest at the top and the highest at the bottom. But I'm going to create a conflict here. Okay, so one's as good as the other. Let's say that Thursday and Friday the temperatures were both 47 degrees. Now this differs from what I had previously shown you, and we'll make the temperatures 47 degrees. So I've got a conflict between here and here. Actually, let me undo that. Okay, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to change this to 40 degrees. I have to remember what that was. It was 34. I may want to reset that, but I'm going to change the 34 to 40. Okay, I'm back in business. So now when I arrange these things in ascending order based upon high temperature, it's going to put, predictably, it's going to put Tuesday at the top of the list, follow that by Thursday. Okay, now there's a tie condition, and what I'll do is I'll use column B data as my primary sort, and then I'll use column C data as my secondary sort. And where there's a conflict in column B, it'll resolve the conflict by going to column C. So let's see how that works. So I'm going to highlight all the data that I want to have rearranged, and in doing so I'm going to exclude row 1 because I don't want it rearranged. I want it to remain where it is. I'm going to go to the data page, and if I use either of these tools, it's going to sort on column A data, and I don't want that. So I can do a more detailed sort if I choose the sort button here, and at this point I can begin defining how I want it sorted. And I want it sorted primarily on column B data. So with the column headings immediately above the selected data, it will show me the column headings up here. Okay. If I didn't have column headings, it would show me the column labels. But for now, I want to sort on temp high. I want to sort by values rather than cell color or some of those more exotic options. And I want to sort in ascending order, which will be small to largest. So that's good. I've defined my primary sort, and now what I want to do is define my secondary sort by adding another level. And this time I want to specify the sort key as temp low. All right, so it's going to then look to this additional column in the event that there's a tie condition, which there would be on Tuesday and Thursdays. It'll look to this and resolve the conflict, and it will sort by value smallest to largest. And that's why before I click the OK button and actually execute the sort, I can predict that the first row 2, the first sorted row, will be Tuesday's data, and the second row will be Thursday's data rather than Thursday appearing before Tuesday. If I only had one sort key, I can't really guarantee under a tie condition which row gets placed ahead of the other. If I have a secondary sort key, as I do here, then I can predict that because the secondary sort's being done in ascending order, it's going to put Tuesday's value of 30 ahead of Thursday's value of 34. And I'll click the button, and there we have it, and it has rearranged the data based upon the high temperatures as the primary sort, and then the low temperatures as the secondary sort. Okay, let's see what else we need to do here. So I went a little above and beyond what I asked for on question 5 by specifying an additional sort key. Next, I'm supposed to calculate the averages and insert them into, and insert a new column D as shown below. Okay, so I need to insert a new column D that says deviation from average misspelled low. And so let me go ahead and insert column D and give it that label. So when I go to the spreadsheet, I'm going to click on the column D label and choose insert. It creates a new column D, and I want this label to read deviation from average low. And I'm going to expand the column. Okay. And then I need to calculate the averages here. So I'm going to go down to column 8, or to row 8, and put in a label, and then apply the average function here to this data. You've seen this done before enough. That should make sense. And now I'm going to have a bit of a problem here, because I changed that value in column B. The average is no longer going to show up like this. Okay, so I've got a difference based upon having made that change, so you'll have to, be aware of that. And now what I'm supposed to do is to find the deviation from the average low. So this deviates, C2's value deviates by 10.2, and I'm subtracting to get that value C2. I'm subtracting C8 from C2. All right, so I need to subtract C8 from C2. So I put in a formula over here, equal C2 minus C, and I need to be very careful here because I'm going to fill this down, and I want to compare in the next one. I want to find the deviation from the difference between C3 and C8, and then C4 and C8. C8 remains constant, so I need to specify an absolute cell address here and hit the enter key. Okay, so that's negative 4.8. Okay, that seems to make sense. And now if I drag down, those are my values. They will appear in a slightly different order, I think, than maybe not. Can't remember. Yeah, they appear in a slightly different order because I am working with that spreadsheet, with spreadsheet 2, where the data has been rearranged, but it's otherwise the same thing. Okay, and if I want to see the average deviation, there we are. And it's putting that in scientific notation because that calculation goes out many places of decimal precision. And I'm not too worried about that or explaining that. Scientific notation is something you may remember from math classes, a shorthand way of describing very large or very small values. Okay, so having done that, the next thing I'm supposed to do is add a title, and so I'm going to put forecast in as a title, and I want to put it on row 1 and I want to blank row 2, so I need to insert a couple of rows. So to do that, and you should know how to do this for the certification exam. I'm just going to go over here and right click on the row label for row 1. Did something wrong there. Okay, and choose insert, and then do the same thing a second time, insert. And I'm going to type into cell A1 the title that I want, which is forecast. I'm going to click on this, go to the home page, and bump that point size up to about 20. And then the next thing I'm supposed to do is merge that title across all these columns. So I need to use the merge and center feature. And so not dragging on the fill handle, but highlighting the cell where I've typed the data in and highlighting clear across all the columns. Then I'm going to apply the merge and center feature, and there we have the title inserted in such a way that it is centered across all the columns. And the next thing I'm supposed to do is to create a hyperlink on this. I'm going to see if I can copy this. Control C. I can type it in, but save me having to type. And I'm going to come back over here and click on this and choose from the insert page hyperlink, and then Control V allows me to paste that in, say OK, and it has associated a hyperlink with that text. Now it's also changed the text size, so let me go back over here and go to the home page and reset that to 20 point. Okay, so I now have a title that acts as a hyperlink, and if I click on it, it should jump me out to weather.com. And there we have weather.com, and it looks like incoming snow blitz. How much will you get? Okay, these weather people are always excited about snow. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is change the print orientation to landscape and make the spreadsheet fit on a single 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper. So in preparation for printing, you should know how to do this. I'm going to go to the page layout page, and I've got two options, portrait and landscape, and I'm able to print more rows at the expense of fewer columns with portrait and more columns at the expense of fewer rows with landscape. So generally I'm going to want to print in landscape, and when I do, for some weird reason, it now shows me that this is I think before it was even worse, but it's showing me that column G is going to get chopped off, and I've got to figure out some way to keep column G on this paper. And so I'm going to go to the margins button on the page layout page, choose custom margins, and print preview. Okay, so that's the way it would look. And what can I do to change things? Well, I could shrink the columns down to, you know, the absolute minimum size they need to be. I may be able to just change, go back here to margins, custom margins. I may be able to expand the size of the page by reducing the margin. So I'm going to try to reduce the left and right margins. Okay, whoops. Try that one more time there. Alright, so I'm going to try to shrink these margins a little bit. You can also drag on this thing, I think. And we'll see what happens in print preview. Well, still not quite enough, apparently. So let me go back. I didn't want to do this, but what looks like oversized columns? Well, all right, let's try
Highlighting all these columns, going to the home page, use something we've seen before, go to the cells ribbon format and choose auto fit column width, and there we have it. That squeezed things down considerably. Well, I'm not sure what happened. I know what happened. Let me try this again. I'm going to highlight all this data. I highlighted row 1. I'm going to highlight all the data and then use that same technique, and I want to auto fit column width. All right, so now it has shrunk things down enough, a little more actually than what I need, but at this point I could begin to just manually tweak this a little bit and add a little bit more to the column width if I so desire. But nevertheless, at this point, if I go to the page layout page and under custom margins, print preview, now I see that I get all my columns on the page. Now it's kind of offset to the left, so the last thing I want to do, and I'm going to cancel that, and the last thing that I want to do here is to, again under custom margins, is to center this on the page horizontally, and I can do it vertically too, and then if I print preview, that's what I get. Okay, so be aware you have the ability to control the way the printing occurs on the paper, whether portrait or landscape orientation. You have the ability to adjust the size of the margins, compress the size of the columns. You could even shrink the size of the font before you adjust the size of the columns and further, get a little bit more space. But there's a variety of things that you can do in combination to allow all the columns to print in most cases. Okay. And if you have too many columns, then obviously you don't have that option. The other thing you do have the option is to get some legal size paper and put it in landscape orientation, and that'll give you even more ability to print even more columns per page. All right, enough said about that, I think. And let me then go back to the instruction sheet, see what else is left to do. I'm supposed to show you how to use the freeze panes option to control the scrolling of the columns. Okay, so what I want to be able to do is to take a column of data that would normally be off to the right and put it right next to another column to the left. And if I need to do that kind of thing, then I have to describe to the spreadsheet program which rows and which columns I want to keep stationary and which ones I want to allow to move, to scroll. And so I want to keep row 3 stationary, and I want to keep column A stationary. So I'm going to place the cell pointer before I select freeze panes. I'm going to put the cell pointer in a cell immediately below the row that I want to keep stationary, and in a cell immediately to the right of the column that I want to keep stationary. So in this case, I'm going to put the cell pointer in cell B4, and then go to the view option, to the view tab, and I have on one of these tabs, the window tab, an option to freeze panes. So I'll choose the freeze panes option, and now if you can see these guidelines, I don't know whether it's clear to you from the video, but I have new guidelines appearing below row 3 and to the right of column A. And so now if I begin to move the cell pointer to the right, eventually it's going to scroll, and I'm going to be able to put 2 columns of data that would otherwise not be adjacent, but be able to put two columns of data side by side. And that is the freeze panes feature. And when you're done with it, if you want to see all the data and get rid of that effect, you click it and it toggles between freeze panes and unfreeze panes. And I think that's everything I need to show you in this video. Okay, so I will do a demonstration of Lab 2 later, and meanwhile, hopefully you have watched this 8-minute and 14-second video on pivot tables, because you need to do that before you work on the next lab. All right, very good. That is everything I'm going to show you.